At 77, Jackson Browne finally reveals the truth about Randy Meisner. For decades, he stayed quiet. Jackson Browne, one of the most thoughtful voices in American music, watched from the sidelines as the narrative around Randy Meisner hardened into something cruel and unfair. The story the world told itself was simple. Randy couldn't handle fame. He wasn't tough enough. He walked away because he was weak. And for decades, Jackson Browne bit his tongue and said nothing. Until now. At 77, after a lifetime of watching his words turn into songs that move millions, Browne has decided it's time to tell the truth about Randy Meisner. Not the sanitized version. Not the polite eulogy. The real truth about a man whose voice defined an era but whose sensitivity was treated like a character flaw. And what Browne reveals now, with the clarity that only age and experience can bring, changes everything we thought we knew about one of rock's most tragic figures. This isn't about settling scores. It's about finally giving Randy Meisner the understanding he deserved while he was alive. Jackson Browne was born Clyde Jackson Browne on October 9th, 1948 in Heidelberg, Germany. His father was a U.S. Army serviceman, and the family relocated to Los Angeles when Jackson was still a child. Growing up in Southern California during the cultural ferment of the late 50s and 60s, Browne absorbed folk music, rock and roll, and the emerging countercultural ideals that would later shape both his songwriting and his activism. Even as a teenager, he demonstrated an unusual sensitivity to language and melody, writing songs that carried emotional depth far beyond his years. Browne's early talent quickly drew attention. By his late teens, he was moving in elite musical circles, collaborating with other rising songwriters of the era. One of his earliest compositions, written when he was just 16, became a defining moment in his career after it was recorded by another artist in 1967. The song's haunting introspection revealed Browne as a writer capable of expressing adult regret and emotional weariness with startling authenticity, a hallmark that would define his body of work. The early 70s marked Browne's emergence as a central figure in the singer-songwriter movement. His self-titled debut album introduced listeners to a deeply personal voice shaped by folk traditions and West Coast rock. Songs combined melodic sophistication with lyrical vulnerability, establishing Browne as an artist unafraid to explore emotional uncertainty. His follow-up albums deepened his reputation, offering reflections on love, loss, responsibility, and the uneasy transition from youthful idealism to adult reality. Tragedy profoundly influenced Browne's life and music. In 1976, his first wife died by suicide, leaving Browne devastated and grappling with grief that would echo throughout his songwriting. His albums from that period are suffused with themes of sorrow, disillusionment, and perseverance, capturing the emotional weight of personal loss while also addressing broader existential questions. Commercial success reached its peak in the late 70s with an album recorded largely on the road. Rather than a traditional studio project, the album documented life in motion. Hotel rooms, backstage moments, and the emotional toll of constant touring. The record cemented Browne's status as a major cultural voice and remains one of the most beloved albums of its era. As the political and social climate of the United States shifted in the 80s, Browne's music evolved accordingly. Increasingly outspoken about social justice, environmental issues, and human rights, he used his platform to advocate for change. His albums from that period reflected his growing political engagement, addressing foreign policy, war, and moral responsibility with a directness that divided critics but earned respect for its integrity. Despite changing musical trends, Browne's relevance never faded. In later decades, he continued to release critically acclaimed albums that reaffirmed his lyrical strength and emotional maturity. His songwriting aged gracefully, shifting focus from youthful longing to reflection, accountability, and resilience. Browne's voice, weathered by time, only added to the authenticity of his performances, giving his later work a lived-in wisdom that resonated deeply with longtime fans. In 2016, the music world watched a deeply emotional moment unfold at a major awards ceremony when Browne reunited with the Eagles to perform a song he had co-written in his early 20s in tribute to a founding member who had just died. The song, written decades earlier, suddenly carried the full weight of history, of youth, friendship, and a shared journey that had reshaped popular music. Browne's voice, seasoned by time and loss, lent the performance a quiet reverence, turning what could have been a nostalgic moment into a heartfelt farewell. In 2020, amid global uncertainty, he released reflective and intimate songs that felt eerily attuned to the moment, cautious, searching, and emotionally honest. These songs were intended to introduce a new studio album, but the release was postponed as the pandemic brought the music industry to a standstill. A highly anticipated tour with a longtime friend was also pushed back, underscoring how even the most established artists were forced to pause and adapt. When the album was finally released in 2021, it stood as a testament to resilience, relevance, and reflection. the album didn't chase trends or relive past glories. Instead, it spoke with the calm authority of an artist who had lived through change, loss, and renewal, and had something meaningful left to say. If this story about Jackson Browne touches your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Jackson Browne's personal life has often unfolded with the same intensity, beauty, and heartbreak that define his music, revealing a man whose deepest joys and most devastating losses were never far from his art. He was married twice and became the father of 2 sons. Yet behind those simple facts lies a story marked by love, tragedy, and emotional complexity. His first great love was an actress and model. Their son was born in 1973 and grew up in Los Angeles, surrounded by the creative energy of his father's rising stardom. In a moment that captured both Browne's fame and his tender new role as a father, Jackson and his infant son appeared together on the cover of a major music magazine, an image that symbolized a young artist balancing success with newfound parenthood. Browne and his partner married in 1975, but their happiness was tragically short-lived. In March 1976, she died by suicide at the age of just 30. Her death devastated Browne and cast a long emotional shadow over his life and work, influencing some of his most haunting and introspective songwriting. Decades later, tragedy struck again when his son died in November 2025 at the age of 52 from an overdose, another profound loss in Browne's life as a father. In 1981, Browne found love again and married a model. Their son was born the following year and would later carve out his own path in music. Despite the promise of a new beginning, this marriage also proved short-lived, ending in divorce in 1983. In the years that followed, Browne's personal life became quieter, but no less meaningful, marked by long-term relationships and a growing dedication to activism and social responsibility beyond music. At 77 years old, Jackson Browne no longer feels the need to soften the past or wrap it in polite nostalgia. Time has given him clarity, and with it a quiet honesty about the people who shaped his life and the era that shaped them all. When he speaks about Randy Meisner now, his voice carries both affection and regret, a recognition of immense talent shadowed by personal struggle. Randy was one of the gentlest souls I ever knew in this business. Browne has said, "He wasn't built for the brutality of fame, even though his voice helped define one of the biggest bands in the world." Meisner, best known as the original bassist and a founding member of the Eagles, possessed a high, aching tenor that could convey vulnerability in a way few singers could. His most famous vocal performances were not just hits, they were emotional exposures. And Browne insists that people often underestimated the personal cost of singing like that night after night. According to Browne, Meisner's struggles were never about a lack of discipline or professionalism. "People like to say Randy couldn't handle it, but that's too simple," he explained. What he couldn't handle was being asked to turn his pain into a product every single night. Browne recalls backstage moments when Meisner seemed overwhelmed, withdrawn, and deeply uncomfortable with the confrontational atmosphere that surrounded the Eagles as their success exploded. There was a hardness in that band that Randy didn't have, Browne admitted. He came from a place of harmony, musically and emotionally, and the Eagles became a pressure cooker. While internal conflicts within the group have long been documented, Browne believes Meisner often bore the emotional weight of those tensions. Randy internalized everything. Instead of fighting back, he folded inward. Browne also addresses the long-standing narrative that Meisner quit the Eagles because he wasn't strong enough. "That story has never sat right with me," he said. "Walking away isn't always weakness. Sometimes it's survival." From Browne's perspective, Meisner leaving the band was an act of self-preservation, even if it came at the cost of fame, fortune, and public misunderstanding.